Malaysia is one of the most welcoming countries in Southeast Asia. The people are warm, the food is extraordinary, the culture is rich and layered in ways that take years to fully appreciate. And for the vast majority of visitors, a trip to Malaysia goes exactly as planned. Smooth, memorable, and worth every penny. But there is a category of mistakes that a small number of visitors make every single year that does not end with a slap on the wrist or an awkward conversation with a police officer. It ends at the airport, with a one-way ticket home that you did not choose to buy and a stamp in your passport that means you cannot come back. Deportation from Malaysia is not a theoretical risk. It happens regularly. It happens to people who genuinely did not understand what they were doing wrong, and it happens fast, in some cases within hours of the offense being discovered. So in this video, I am going to walk you through the specific things that will get you deported from Malaysia. Not fined, not warned, deported. Some of these will surprise you. All of them are real. Before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my videos. 1. Overstaying your visa or entry permission. Let's start with the one that catches the most people and the one that feels the most avoidable in hindsight. Every visitor to Malaysia is granted a specific period of authorized stay when they arrive, printed in your passport, recorded in the immigration system, and tracked digitally from the moment your passport is scanned at the border. When that period expires, you are no longer legally in the country. It doesn't matter if you are in the middle of a trip. It doesn't matter if your flight home is only 3 days away. The moment your authorized stay expires, you are an illegal immigrant under Malaysian law. And Malaysia enforces this. The immigration department runs regular operations at hotels, at tourist hotspots, at transport hubs, specifically designed to identify people who are in the country without valid authorization. Officers can and do check passports. Hotel front desks are legally required to report guests whose documentation is not in order. And at the airport, when you attempt to leave, the system will flag immediately if your stay has expired. What happens when you are caught overstaying depends on the length of the overstay and the discretion of the immigration officer. Short overstays are typically handled with a fine, detention until the fine is paid, and deportation. Longer overstays can result in imprisonment before deportation. In all cases, overstaying results in a blacklist entry that bars you from re-entering Malaysia. The length of the ban ranges from a few years to permanent, depending on the severity. The solution to this is so simple it is almost frustrating to have to say it. Know your visa conditions before you travel. Write down your expiration date. Set a reminder on your phone 7 days before it expires. And if your plans change and you need more time, go to an immigration office and apply for an extension before your current permission runs out. Extensions are available. They are not complicated, but they only work if you apply for them while you are still legally in the country. Applying after your visa has already expired is not an extension. It is a confession. 2. Working without a valid work permit. This one is specifically for the growing population of digital nomads, remote workers, freelancers, and content creators who travel to Malaysia and continue to do their jobs while they are there. Malaysia does not have a widely available digital nomad visa, though discussions around introducing one have been ongoing. What this means practically is that most visitors enter Malaysia on a tourist visa or under visa-free arrangements, and tourist visas in Malaysia do not permit you to work. Now, the nuance here matters. If you are employed by a company in another country, receiving your salary into a foreign bank account, and doing your remote work quietly from your hotel room or a cafe in KL, the practical enforcement risk is relatively low. Immigration authorities are not monitoring your laptop, but the legal risk is real. If you are investigated, if your visa status is queried for any reason, and it emerges that you have been working in Malaysia without authorization, you are in violation of the Employment Act and the Immigration Act simultaneously. Where this becomes a much more immediate and serious problem is in specific situations. If you are a content creator filming commercial content in Malaysia for pay, brand deals, sponsored posts, paid YouTube content, and you are doing this on a tourist visa, you are working without a permit. If you are performing services for Malaysian clients or Malaysian businesses while on a tourist visa, you are working without a permit. If you are physically present in Malaysia conducting business on behalf of a foreign company in ways that go beyond attending meetings, you are in a gray area at minimum. People have been deported from Malaysia for working without valid authorization. It tends to surface during investigations for other reasons: a complaint from a business competitor, a routine document check, an issue with accommodation registration, but when it does surface, the consequence is immediate removal from the country and a ban on re-entry. If you plan to work from Malaysia for any extended period, research the appropriate visa category for your situation before you travel. Malaysia does have specific business and employment visa pathways. Use them. They exist for exactly this.
3. Drug offenses. I know, you have heard this before, but I am including it here specifically because deportation is actually the best case outcome in a Malaysian drug case, and understanding that context changes how you think about it. For possession of very small quantities of certain substances, quantities below the thresholds that trigger the trafficking presumption, a foreign national may, after serving whatever sentence is imposed, be deported rather than remain in the Malaysian prison system. But let's be completely clear about what that means. It means you would already have been arrested, prosecuted, convicted, potentially caned, and imprisoned before deportation becomes part of the conversation. The deportation is not the punishment. The deportation is what happens after the punishment. For drug trafficking, which is defined by quantity thresholds under the Dangerous Drugs Act, not by intent, the mandatory sentence is death. There is no deportation at the end of a trafficking conviction in Malaysia. There is no end. The reason I include this under the deportation category is specifically for the person who thinks, okay, worst case, I get caught with something small, I get deported, that's not so bad. That is not how it works. Even a possession conviction in Malaysia is a prison sentence and a caning before the deportation. There is no version of a drug offense in Malaysia that is a minor inconvenience. Do not bring drugs into Malaysia. Do not buy drugs in Malaysia. Do not carry anything for anyone through Malaysian borders. This point does not get made too many times. 4. Overstaying the conditions of your visa, not just the duration. This is a more nuanced version of the overstay issue, and it is one that a surprising number of people do not understand. Your visa does not just define how long you can stay, it defines what you can do while you are there. A social visit pass, which is what most tourists receive, authorizes you to be in Malaysia as a visitor. It does not authorize you to enroll in a long-term educational program without the appropriate student visa. It does not authorize you to engage in business activities that require a business visa. It does not authorize you to receive medical treatment under arrangements that require a medical visa. There are also conditions attached to certain visa categories around where you can travel within Malaysia. Some border areas and certain sensitive regions have access restrictions that apply even to visitors with otherwise valid documentation. The practical scenario where this causes deportation most often involves people who enter on a tourist visa and then attempt to engage in activities that require a different visa category. The immigration system cross-references information when inconsistencies surface, when someone on a tourist visa is found to have been attending a language school, or conducting business meetings, or receiving extended medical treatment. The investigation that follows frequently results in the visa being canceled and the person being removed. Know what your visa permits you to do, not just how long it lets you stay. The conditions are as binding as the duration. 5. Involvement in protests or politically sensitive activities. Malaysia has laws around public assembly and political activities that are significantly more restrictive than what citizens of Western democracies are accustomed to. Under the Peaceful Assembly Act, public assemblies require prior notification to the police and are subject to various conditions and restrictions. Foreign nationals participating in any form of public demonstration, protest, or political gathering, even one that seems peaceful and minor, are in violation of both the assembly laws and their visa conditions, which prohibit political activity by visitors. This is not hypothetical. Foreign nationals have been detained and deported from Malaysia for participating in protests, for distributing materials related to political causes, for attending gatherings that were deemed by authorities to be politically motivated. In some cases, even attending events that the participant believed to be cultural or educational, but which authorities classified as political, has resulted in immigration consequences. As a foreign visitor, Malaysian politics is not your arena. This is not a statement about whether the laws are right or wrong. It is simply the reality of your legal position as a guest in the country. Getting involved in political activities in Malaysia, however legitimate they may feel from your perspective, puts your visa status at direct risk. The deportation that follows is typically immediate, and the re-entry ban is typically
6. Making prohibited statements, online and in person. Malaysia's Communications and Multimedia Act, the Sedition Act, and various other pieces of legislation create a broad framework of prohibited speech that catches foreign visitors more often than you might expect. Posting content online that is deemed to insult the Malaysian royal family. Posting content that is considered offensive to Islam or to any other religion in the context of Malaysian law. Making public statements that are considered seditious, meaning statements that could stir up hatred or contempt against the government or the rulers. Publishing or sharing content online that the authorities determine is false or harmful to public order. All of these can and do result in investigation, detention, and in the case of foreign nationals, deportation. And critically, the content does not have to be posted from within Malaysia to fall under this framework. If you are in Malaysia and you post something on your social media that violates these laws, the fact that the server isn't another country does not protect you. You are physically present in Malaysia. Malaysian law applies to you. There is a specific scenario that catches content creators and travel journalists more than casual tourists. Filming and posting content that is deemed to misrepresent Malaysia, to mock Malaysian culture or religion, to present the country in a way that the government considers harmful to national interest. This category of content has resulted in foreign nationals being questioned, detained, and removed from the country. Malaysia takes its international image seriously. It has legal tools to protect that image, and it uses them. Think carefully about everything you post while you are physically in Malaysia, not just the things that are obviously sensitive. Everything. The Communications and Multimedia Act is written broadly enough that the definition of offensive or harmful content is interpreted at the discretion of the authority invoking it. 7. Immoral behavior in public. This is a category that sounds vague because Malaysian law deliberately gives it some flexibility in application, and that flexibility is precisely what makes it relevant here. Under various state and federal regulations, behavior deemed to be immoral, indecent, or contrary to public decency in a public space is an offense. What this covers in practice goes beyond what most Western visitors would assume. Public displays of affection, kissing, intimate physical contact in spaces where such behavior is considered culturally inappropriate can attract police attention. This is more actively enforced in conservative states like Kelantan, Terengganu, and Kedah than in Kuala Lumpur, but the legal basis for enforcement exists across the country. Dressing in a manner considered indecent in certain public spaces, particularly near mosques, in traditional villages, in conservative communities, can result in being approached by authorities. For most tourists, this results in a warning or a request to cover up, but in combination with other factors or in cases where the visitor is argumentative or disrespectful in response, it can escalate. Being found in a hotel room with someone of the opposite sex who is not your spouse, in states where Sharia law applies to Muslims and where morality enforcement is active, is a specific risk. This applies primarily to Malaysian Muslims under Sharia jurisdiction, but the investigation that it triggers can expose a foreign visitor's own conduct and visa status to scrutiny that they did not intend to invite. The broader principle here is to be observant. The standard of behavior expected in public in Malaysia varies significantly by region. What is completely acceptable in the bars of Kuala Lumpur's KLCC district will attract a very different response in a rural town in Kelantan. Read where you are, adjust accordingly, and when in doubt, err well on the side of modesty and restraint. 8. Using a valid visa for repeated short-stay border runs. This one is very specific to a subset of visitors, long-term travelers, expats who have not yet obtained proper residency, and people who love Malaysia so much that they keep coming back, but it is real and it is increasingly enforced. Some visitors to Malaysia, particularly in the past, used a strategy known as a visa run. Leave Malaysia just before their authorized stay expires, cross into Thailand or Singapore or Indonesia briefly, and re-enter Malaysia to get a fresh stamp and a fresh period of authorized stay. Repeat indefinitely. Malaysian immigration authorities have become significantly more alert to this pattern. An immigration officer at the point of entry has full discretion to deny entry to anyone they believe is not a genuine tourist,
and someone who has a passport showing 6 entries into Malaysia in the past 12 months, all of roughly the same duration, with brief exits in between, is going to attract exactly that level of scrutiny. Being denied entry is not quite the same as deportation. Technically, you are refused admission rather than expelled after entry, but the practical outcome is the same. You are put on a plane, you go home, and a record of your entry refusal means future visits to Malaysia will be subject to additional scrutiny and may simply be denied. If you want to spend extended time in Malaysia, pursue the legal route. The Malaysia My Second Home program, the D-Rantau Digital Nomad Pass, and various employment and business visa pathways all offer legitimate long-term options. Use them. The visa run strategy worked for a window of time that has large.
9. Document fraud and misrepresentation. This one might seem obvious. Of course, you shouldn't use false documents. But the category of document fraud that results in deportation from Malaysia is broader than most people assume and includes actions that some visitors do not even recognize as fraud. Presenting a passport that has been altered in any way. Attempting to enter on someone else's passport or with someone else's visa. Providing false information on your visa application, including misrepresenting your occupation, your finances, your purpose of visit, or your intended length of stay. Claiming a different reason for entry to immigration officers than your actual purpose. That last point is particularly relevant for the content creator and business traveler categories. Entering Malaysia on a tourist visa while intending to film commercial content, conduct business meetings, or perform work-related activities, and then telling the immigration officer that your visit is purely for tourism is misrepresentation. If it surfaces during your visit or during a future entry attempt, it can be treated as the basis for cancellation of your visa and removal from the country. Immigration officers ask questions for a reason. Answer them accurately. If the honest answer creates a complication, if the real purpose of your visit means you need a different visa category, sort that out before you travel. Misrepresenting your purpose at the border creates a problem that is significantly worse than the inconvenience of obtaining the correct visa in advance. 10. Being deemed a threat to national security or public order. This is the catch-all category, and it is deliberately broad, because Malaysian immigration law gives authorities significant discretionary power to remove any foreign national deemed to be a threat to national security, public order, or public health. Under the Immigration Act, the Director General of Immigration has the authority to cancel any visa and order the removal of any foreign national without being required to provide a specific criminal conviction as the basis. The threshold is administrative rather than criminal. It does not require a court order. It does not require a specific law to have been broken in a provable way. It requires a determination by the immigration authority that your presence in Malaysia is not in the national interest. This power has been used to deport journalists who were investigating stories the government found uncomfortable. It has been used to remove activists. It has been used to remove academics whose research touched on sensitive political or religious topics. It has been used to remove people with no obvious political profile at all, whose removal was triggered by complaints from third parties, or by intelligence assessments that were never disclosed to the person being removed. There is no specific behavior I can tell you to avoid to be completely protected from this category. What I can tell you is that the broader principle of being a respectful, informed, law-abiding guest in Malaysia dramatically reduces your exposure across all of these categories, including this one. The people who end up on the wrong side of Malaysian immigration authorities' discretionary powers are almost never people who simply visited, enjoyed the country, and went home. They are people who created friction, who ignored signals, who pushed against the grain of a legal and political system they did not fully understand. Malaysia is not trying to deport tourists. It is trying to protect its own stability and sovereignty as it defines them. Understand that, even if you do not agree with every specific law that follows from it, and your visit will go exactly as it should. Malaysia does not want to deport you. I want to say that clearly before we close. The immigration authorities, the government, the people of Malaysia, none of them have any interest in creating problems for genuine tourists who are there to experience and appreciate the country. Every single thing in this video is avoidable, not through loopholes or workarounds, but through the simple, straightforward approach of knowing the rules before you arrive, respecting the country you are visiting, and behaving in ways that would make sense in any society that takes its own laws seriously. Do that, and Malaysia will give you back everything it has to offer, which is genuinely extraordinary. The food alone is worth the trip. Everything else is a bonus. If this video was useful,
Hit the like button, subscribe for more travel content that actually tells you what you need to know, and drop a comment below. Were you surprised by any of these? Is there something you've seen happen to someone you know? Tell me in the comments. I'll see you in the next